Ready?
Yep.
Jesus Christ, how do you do that? Oh, fuck.
We'll be conducting an interview up there.
I can't leave you down there. All right, Dan. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
For those of you on the audio platforms, we are in my rooftop jacuzzi with a 360 view of the island here in Phuket, but it's covered in ice, and it's an ice bath, and I'm freezing.
Yeah, it's cold. This is a good one.
I figured it'd be a great place to start the podcast. So how's your trip been to Phuket so far?
It's been good, man. It's been really fucking good.
Dives are great.
Dude, I did 2 minutes yesterday.
I saw that, yeah. 42 feet?
Yeah, that was nice.
We've been doing some free diving. Dan's been teaching me how to hold my breath and be relaxed and a little better technique and Tony and...
Fucking one-speed Swick. The guy almost blacks out both days in a row. He's got no fucking...
It's because of him. It's because he's so competitive, this guy. He's so competitive, and so am I, so it's like...
Says the guy that came up with blue fucking lips.
Yeah. But I did it. I finally did it.
No, you did.
Only because you did it, though. So how you feeling?
I'm good, man.
Starting to feel a little better.
Yeah, it's been 1 minute.
So what's your favorite thing about Thailand, different than any other country? I mean, obviously you may have a better place, but what separates this place?
There's just so much to do.
Yeah.
You know, you can do the MMA gyms, you can go diving. You know, it's similar to Kauai, like the Garden Island of Hawaii, but there's just more shit to do here.
Yeah.
You know, the water is so fucking warm.
Not this water.
No, not this water.
Yeah, this is pretty cold. Oh my god.
My watch stopped.
It stopped?
Yeah.
Did it say it was too cold?
Oh, I think so.
Don't break it.
Yes.
I used a thermometer and it just said low. It didn't even give a temperature. So yeah, so we'll get done with this and then we'll go downstairs in the studio and get into your book. It's coming out when? It's coming out now, or it's shipping soon, right?
About a week. Yeah.
So pretty much by the time this podcast posts, it'll be available, and we'll put the information at the bottom how they can order it and get it shipped. It's fucking amazing. I didn't expect anything less from this man, and I was actually shocked myself, and I've hung out with you for a while. And I was at a couple of your parties, so...
It took a while, man. It's 2 years about...
Yeah? I'm proud that you wrote that, man. Like, it's like, for me to sit and try to write a book like that, and I know you did it, it's like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I didn't really have a choice. Like, the ghostwriter that did it, he just had the wrong tone. You know, he was just too braggy, and you know, it just wasn't my voice. So if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And with your book, if you want your voice, there's no real shortcuts to it.
Yeah. And you told it how it is with everyone, including yourself, which I thought was really cool. I mean, you basically, this is raw and gritty.
It's the good, the bad, the ugly, you know?
On you and everybody else. Mostly you, because you're the one that stays throughout the whole book. But, yeah.
And you can't just do a highlight reel. You know, too many of these guys, they just do a highlight reel, their greatest achievements, and they don't talk about all the embarrassing shit about themselves. And I think you got to do that, you know, especially when you've done as crazy stuff as I have. I think you got to, you know, temper it with some, you know, bad, embarrassing shit as well, too. So.
And your humor is quite funny, the way you describe stuff. I think the Lance Armstrong cyclist chapter, the way you kind of gave your opinion on final notes, and then at the end was absolutely hilarious. I laughed out loud and then showed everybody.
There's a lot of people who like that.
Who would go to that after that? You know what I mean? Like, only you. So great. Anyway, by the way, long story short, great book. So without further ado, we will go and jump into it. All right, so welcome to the indoor portion of the show.
Yep.
I remember asking you to do the podcast at your house 2018, and you said no. You're a man of your word. And so I had to do 150 interviews and stay on you, and you said, I'll definitely do it when I have something to promote, and man of your word.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't think I've done a podcast in, maybe like 3 years. Wow. So this is number one, so.
Is this the first one inside of a jacuzzi with ice?
Yeah, man.
How you started it?
It's, it was a little foggy this morning, and, those ice baths, they're just kind of, you know. Yeah. Better with weed than GHB apparently, but I feel better than when we started.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, so that if I'm talking a little funny here, it's because I'm freezing. We just got out of the, as you saw, we just got out of the ice bath, and we didn't take a break. We came straight in here. So I got to ask you, what was the main purpose of your book? I mean, you obviously had a main purpose when you wrote this thing. It's a lot of work. What would you say the main goal is you're trying to accomplish?
Well, so this book was written, not this book, but in 2016, I set out to write the book, and I had a ghostwriter. I don't like reading, I don't like writing, I don't like any of that shit. So I got a ghostwriter, went through all of it, got to deal with Simon & Schuster, and, the book just wasn't the right voice. So I just had to just do it right. And I kind of wanted to, set the record straight. There's just so many misconceptions about me, and I'm one of those guys that kind of like lead with my worst traits. Mm-hmm. And I don't really care that much, but I'd rather be disliked for things that I've done rather than disliked for, whatever. And also the story was really crazy, and I was kind of at a turning point in my life with COVID. I had, some time off. I'd been going so hard in the pleasure-seeking stuff, and it was just the perfect timing, man. Like, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't think I would have sat down for 2 fucking years and done edit after edit after edit after edit, And so just right time, right place, and I felt like I'd kind of like climbed the mountain I wanted to climb, and so it was time to do something else. And I was training with David Goggins. He was over at my house, and all the gyms were shut down, and he was telling me about his book, and I was like, okay, I'll read this fucking book. And I read it, and it was actually pretty good, and it touched on a lot of things that I had done. The SEAL training, and he had actually like one of the few guys that had done as much SEAL training as I had. And we were similar but very different, like very, very different, but also very similar in some areas too. And so kind of an odd couple to be, working out and hanging out. And he told me he sold like $30 million worth of books or some shit. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And the guy's like,
I never knew it was like that.
Kid, dude, he sold over 3 million copies. It's like so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, fuck, I got some time, might as well just bang it out. And fucking 2 years later, 37 fucking edits or whatever it was, it's finally done. So
I remember you had a contest on your Instagram to name the book.
Yep.
And I said, you should just call it Dan Bilzerian, because that's enough, just big and bold on top. And 15,000 people agreed. You ended up calling it The Setup, but it kind of looks like you took my advice a little bit there. Dan Bilzerian is the biggest thing on your cover.
So
did I half win? Do I get some like partial credit for that or anything?
So the setup came from Neil Strauss. He's the guy that wrote the game, and so I paid him on it. But I actually, we've flip-flopped this. We've gone with different pictures. This is kind of like where we landed, but I thought having the huge name was, kind of lame, but they thought that it would sell more books. And well, no, of
course you would, because it's your name, right?
Yeah, just like, I don't know, having the name bigger than the title seemed a little strange, but I don't know. That's where we landed.
left that part out. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I meant just the name and the title. I forgot to put that in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, it was kind of like, what's going to sell more books. Also, I had kind of a shitty haircut at the time. If I had the mullet, I probably would have accentuated that. But yeah, that's where we landed, man. So
the book is what's awesome about it is it's kind of multiple books in one. It's we have something in common as far as I wanted to be a SEAL when I was a kid, and you actually went to training. But I read a lot of SEAL books, and your gritty, raw, honest, like recount of that training is insane. I've never read something like that, and I'll just say that. Yeah,
it was a weird time, when we were growing up. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have access to all this material, So right. I didn't know anybody that was, even knew anybody that was a SEAL. You couldn't go to the library and, really get books. And that was back when people actually went to the fucking library. And now you can just go on YouTube or, Google whatever and watch people actually in training. I didn't know what you wore. I just had no fucking idea. I didn't even know where it was. And so, yeah, it's just, it's such a different world now, but back then it was like, all smoke and mirrors. Nobody had any idea. And it was like all this mystique, and it was pretty scary, but it was, it was kind of my only option, really. And I think a lot of people join the military for that reason, because that's like their best option. Everyone wants to make it seem so heroic. And while there is a lot of heroes in the military, it's like most people join because that's their best fucking option.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
yeah, and going back to that real fast, I'll get back to the Buds thing, but the part I was saying about multiple books, it's like you have the Buds book, which is SEAL training. You have like a poker book, again, that gets real raw and gritty in the poker world, which is something I've never read before. You got the setup, your way of kind of like setting up things to work in your favor. And then just entertainment. And Sam could probably have his own chapter as well, your friend Sam.
Oh, he does.
So it's
he
like multiple books, right, in one book. It's just so entertaining.
That's the thing, is like it was just such a, different journey along the way. Like there's a childhood, which was, whatever. And then, the military was just such a different, direction in my life. And then we took a, fucking hard left in the, college, and then gambling. And so, yeah, I mean, each thing was very different, but, I kind of wanted to dive into it because I think there's a lot of interest in, what it's like to go through SEAL training. And like you said, there's not a ton of, books about, the actual training piece of it. And then, gambling was that was a crazy thing. I mean, you're just totally on your own. I was completely independent, and you got to like manage this money. Just because you got, $1 million doesn't mean you actually have $1 million, because you could go out and fucking lose. So it's like, it's kind of, that was a crazy piece of the gambling, was like money management. It's like, just because you have a net worth of this doesn't mean you really have a net worth of that, because you could go into work and fucking lose money. It's like, there's not a lot of jobs like that. I mean, I think there's, stock trading is probably the only one that I can really think of, where you go into work, you do the right thing, and you can still fucking lose money.
Right.
So there was a lot of stress with that. And then, it was just it was a crazy time, because you've got so much freedom. And, I went from like the structure of the military to then college, and then now I'm, gambling, and I got fucking millions of dollars, and I can travel and do whatever the fuck I want, and no boss and no rules and no guidelines. So like the most rigid structure possible to like zero fucking structure at all. And yeah, it was a crazy time, man. Like, it seems more glamorous than it was, and I talked about that a little bit in there. Mm-hmm. Like the stresses of it is something that I don't think a lot of people really like fully take in, because most people haven't lost millions of dollars in a night. Like, that's a fucking kick in the nuts. Or even like on a smaller scale, hundreds of thousands, 10,000, in college, fucking, $500, like whatever. It's just all relative to your net worth. And so when you go in and you lose an amount of money that like actually changes your fucking life, it's, it's something that most people just, couldn't deal with, or wouldn't want to deal with, and, hopefully shouldn't deal with. But, it's part of the fucking thing, And then
in the SEAL training, I got to ask you, because it was so gritty and raw. I don't want to give it away, but what you did during your training on your little excursions down south, is that something common? And does the Navy know that you put that in this book?
The steroid
Is there going to be
stuff?
some controversy from that?
Oh, fuck yeah, man. There will be controversy about a lot of this stuff.
So you didn't really like get approval for a lot of this stuff?
No, I mean, I think they're probably going to frown on smuggling steroids up your ass across the border.
Well, there you go. But you definitely still want to read it, trust me, because he goes into great detail about it.
I mean, it's, it's one of those things where, we were going down to Mexico every week, and so every time you go down there, you're taking a risk, right? Like, if you get caught down there, you get thrown out of training. So, do you want to risk getting caught going down every week, or do you want to risk the one time coming across the border, And so we figured if we stuck the steroids up our actual asshole, then, it'd probably be the least chance of getting searched. So
probably, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what percentage of those guys are doing it, but it's certainly a lot more than I thought when I went in. Like, when I went in, it wasn't really a consideration. I thought it was like, steroids are such a big deal. But I think probably, I don't know, over a third of the guys are probably juicing.
Yeah. That's crazy. And it was so gritty how you described it. And I think another good thing I liked about your book, I'm I'm having a hard time talking because I got chills.
Dude, I'm fucking... I'm like, yeah, me too.
Sorry. If I'm stumbling, it's not that I'm punch drunk.
I feel like I'm like trying to catch my breath.
I was negative 0 degrees for like 10 minutes before this conversation. But another thing you did really good at that you did that I liked really well in the book is adding all the people's...
the vignettes.
The vignettes, right? Because like you had people that were SEAL commanders, people that were in your buds class. Throughout the whole book, you had people, and I think that really added value. And like you said in the beginning, your goal kind of was to kind of set the record straight because you can't always answer. And Dana's a lot like this too. Like he takes a lot of criticism and doesn't answer, and he has the answer but just doesn't do it. Because it might create more drama or more whatever. So he just lets it go.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
I think this is going to really help you answer a lot of questions through other people who's in that same thing and leave people no choice but to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, there's a few pieces of it. Like, so the vignettes is actually, that was my girlfriend's dad that recommended that. And Ted Turner did that in his book. And there's been some other people that have done that. And it's just nice to get like that different viewpoint, especially from, very credible people, Navy SEALs, celebrities, whatever, doctors, lawyers, whatever. And so I think that helps, in giving a different perspective. It obviously gives credibility too. I'd like my SEAL instructor. I had a guy that's, commander of SEAL Team 6. He's been there for 20 years, So I got, people that were there, like in my class, officers that were in my class, my head buds instructor.
Yeah, don't worry. They know at least.
Yeah, like, so all these people, like they're giving their perspective of, what it was. And I think that's important. But yeah, as far as like the Dana thing, when you get a platform that's so fucking big and you've got these news outlets running, shit stories, it's kind of like, yeah, you could set the record straight, but then you could also like give this shitty news outlet all this fucking shine and all these eyeballs. I can show you the stats. It's like...
And what you say is under a microscope. So like if you just kind of go off, they'll take one piece of it and run with it as a headline. And then that's what it's about instead of what you initially planned for it to be.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at, the amount of people that are seeing these fucking posts, right? It's like,
crazy.
What is it?
I saw one the other day.
Yeah, 66 fucking million, right? So, when you don't buy your fucking followers, then, you get shit like that, like fucking almost 2 million shares in the goddamn post, right? So
it's a lot of power, man.
Yeah, but it's a big spotlight, and so it's like, do we want to shine that spotlight on a shitty article that's not true, because I grew up and it was like, if I read something or I saw it on the news, like I assumed that it was true. I mean, that's just how I grew up, and I think that's true of a lot of people. I think this newest generation is probably the only one that's actually like starting to see, like, I mean, especially like CNN. I mean, so much of that stuff is bullshit, and you start seeing it. But when I was growing up, we didn't have social media. We didn't have all this stuff. So it's like what you saw on the news was kind of like it was just believed. Right. And so, it's tough. When you get too big of a platform, you actually get a little bit muted because every time somebody writes a shitty article, if you address it, then there's going to be more shitty articles and more people are going to want to talk shit. Yeah. Just like, fucking during the shooting, that fucking dipshit Marine, he used me to get famous, and so many of these people, they'll latch onto your fucking wagon trying to get famous, trying to get noticed, and it's like, kind of like Jake Paul, not that he wasn't, a well-known guy, but, he's kind of like latched onto the UFC, onto Dana, and by starting that drama, it's smart. I mean, it gets eyeballs and it works, clickbait. I mean, it's, the 6ix9ine, built a lot of his career based on being a troll.
His whole career,
getting his views, so it's like, I get it, but it's just kind of sad now that our news is more about like getting views than putting the story out there, and so it's one of those things where, a lot of times, you can't address it, or, it's probably worse off to address it. Plus, like, if you don't block out all that bullshit, then it, it'll fucking drive you nuts. So
yeah. If I get this correctly, you had a great Denzel Washington quote in your book that said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're misinformed. If you do read it, you're ill-informed. Is that right?
Yeah. I think
so it's kind of like
I think
what
it was
you're
like
saying right
originally
now.
from Mark Twain. I think he got that. But yeah, if you don't, yeah.
But it was a great quote in the book because it's so true, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get informed by reading it, but it's always ill-informed information, right? They're always going to be clickbait, and they don't give a shit who they hurt. They don't
it's
give a
like,
shit
do you not
what
read the
they have to
news
do to
and
get
then you
it
know
out?
nothing,
Right.
or do you read the news and possibly get a bad opinion? So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's like it's an interesting predicament,
And before we get into poker, I want to ask you something. After reading your book, like I have to assume, possibly ever, do you think you've slept with more women than any human being on earth currently and ever?
No, I think, well, it's hard to say.
How could somebody catch you?
Well, because I had a window, right? Like I wasn't always getting a lot of pussy. Like I didn't get a ton of pussy in college. Or sorry, I did in college. I didn't in high school. I got very little pussy in the military. So it's like, for my run, I mean, I had to have fucked more than anybody on the fucking planet. There's no way, because I was taking Cialis, testosterone. I was, no bullshit, fucking on average at least 3 to 4 times a day. Yeah. Which, like, most people can't even fuck 4, 5, 6 times a day. But like, that was like my sole focus. And I just, obviously bad sex addict, right? So it's like I had the resources, the ability. I think there'd probably be more sex addicts if they could. I think there's a lot of like porn addicts.
Yeah.
But if they had the ability to like get that much pussy, I think there'd be a lot of people that would be addicted to that. And so I don't think I've fucked the most girls. I think I have to be up there as far as like the most hot girls. But guys like Hugh Hefner, I mean, he had like a long run, man. Like from fucking 20 to 80? I mean, so it's like, did I beat 60 years in my
still though, 12, I don't know, man. Reading
know.
this book, it's like hard to imagine that like,
but there's also guys that are, more famous than me, more, prestigious, whatever.
Yeah, but they don't live with 15 girls.
Yeah, no. I mean,
maybe a couple of weekends here and there, but.
Yeah. And also I think that guys that have been getting pussy their whole life probably like, unless, like I said, they're a bad sex addict, probably like phase out of it a little bit more. For me, I had that like perceived deficit. So when I could, then I really like went to the end of the earth with it. It's kind of like, if a poor guy gets the opportunity to make some money, and then buy some cool shit, he's going to buy all the cool shit in the fucking world. But if you grew up with all the fucking money, a lot of times, you don't do the nouveau riche thing. I mean, I grew up with money and still did the fucking nouveau riche thing, but like most people don't, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then the setup. So, there's a lot to take from that. So, I mean, you don't have to be you and making millions of dollars from your poker to actually use the things that you give, the advice you give in the book. And I think it's going to change a lot of things depending on how many people read it and use it. It's not going to be good for women to because if guys start using your advice, they're going to give them a lot less attention, which I've always agreed with.
Yeah,
but I've never been a guy to gawk at girls, because it just raises their level.
Women have been using the setup. Like, dude, they got fucking fake heels, fake tits, fake eyelashes, fake, makeup. Like, they don't look like that. So, like, they're doing all these things to, like, set it up in their favor. Plus, they've got a lot more experience. They've got guys that are constantly hitting on them throughout their whole life. Right. So they walk into a situation, they can read it better. And also, like, when somebody's chasing you, you have so much more power. You're so much more in control. Like, the moment a girl realizes a guy's interested in her, she can kind of like, she can just deal with the situation differently, right? She has so much more power. The guy's chasing her. He's indicated interest. Now in her mind, she's figuring out ways to disqualify him. I mean, it's that whole thing, right? So this just kind of like gives guys a little bit more of their power back. Like, we're in such a bad spot in the U.S. because, it's like women want equal rights when it's convenient, but then they still want the door open for them. They still want fucking dinner paid for, right? Like, it's like equal when it's convenient, and then they want all the perks as well. And if they're hot, they could be fucking flying on private jets when they're 20 years old and doing all the shit that I want to do, right? Like, so they have a lot of doors open for them. This is just kind of like evening the playing field a little bit. And I think, these guys, they grow up with like all this Hollywood bullshit, which is, kiss the girl's ass, like, do whatever she wants, like chase her. And it's like, all this stuff is bullshit, man. It's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. They get some gay guy to fucking play the lead role in these romance movies. and shows these guys all the wrong fucking things to do, you know? And these guys are the biggest simps and suckers, and women do not respond well to that. They really don't. Like, they want a challenge. They want a little bit of a chase. Like, if a guy, you know, goes up to a girl, oh, you're so beautiful, let me buy you a drink, immediately she's looking at this guy like a sucker and, like, thinking of reasons why she doesn't want to fuck him. Yeah. You know, so it's like they just teach you the wrong approach. And I don't think there's enough information out there about, like, what you should do with girls. So, I mean, you know, Hollywood teaches you everything that you shouldn't.
All right, fellas, you want to help support the podcast? I know you do. All this content, all these interviews with these fantastic guests that we're putting out for you, well, now you can. And you can save 20% off and get free shipping by getting the best below-the-waist men's grooming products on the market. I'm talking about Manscaped. All you got to do is go to manscaped.com, manscaped.com, enter code QUICK at checkout, 20% off, and free shipping. Quick is my nickname. It is not how you use the product. Don't be silly, fellas. Come on. But Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and now they have the new Lawnmower 4.0, which is next level, the best trimmer on the market ever made. What makes it different? It has skin-safe replacement ceramic blades, controllable LED lights, wireless charging dock, and a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology, and it's even waterproof. They also have a full line of hygiene and grooming products like the Shears 2.0 Luxury Nail Kit, Crop Mops, Preserver, Reviver, and a lot more. Manscaped has everything you need to appeal to your lady friend, but don't thank me, thank yourself. By going to manscaped.com, entering code QUICK, get 20% off, get free shipping. It's a win-win for you, it's a win-win for us, and you're supporting the podcast. All right, so you
got my little
got a blanket.
Yeah, dude.
You added a blanket to your wardrobe.
You like got our cores cold. I haven't had my core cold for a while.
For the record, though, this was Dan's idea to do the ice bath, so I didn't make him.
Well, I realize that, but you're so fucking competitive with everything that you do that you always have to like push the fucking
He thinks I sat in the ice bath like 30 seconds longer than him, and he thinks that I did that out of competitiveness.
Fucking
which
Captain
could be true.
Lips.
Which could be true.
So we did our swim in the pool. We did the 25. I did the 25 meter. Then you had to one up with the 40. Then I did the 50. Then you about fucking killed yourself with the 50. So yeah, there is a little bit of
we are competitive. And I've almost died being competitive with you multiple times this trip. I think the most dangerous thing I did was that cave.
The cave was definitely...
Because I had no idea how deep it was, how far it was.
I can't believe you did that.
And the previous day, I couldn't clear my ears. And I went 10 feet down, maybe at the most, 15 feet.
Yeah. No, it was funny because...
That was the scariest thing when I got down there.
I specifically didn't take you to that cave because I knew there was a decent chance that you'd just fucking John Wayne it and sure enough.
I saw that cave. It was so beautiful, man. And I was just like, boom.
Yeah, no, it was a cool video. Oh, awesome. Thank you. This reminds me of the old fucking Buds days. I'd be sitting in my car, man, and I'd the fucking heater on full blast. Oh, that's amazing. Have the heater on full blast, and I just like I couldn't get warm. Yeah. I'd be in there. I'd have the goddamn heater on, have a sweater on, and it was just like, man, nothing seemed to matter. You'd just be shivering.
Well, for the record, a jacuzzi with jets and ice is a hell of a lot colder than a regular ice bath.
Well, the reason I think that it got so cold is because you'd been cooling it since 9 a.m.
Right.
So when you start? Because
I wanted the big ice blocks to still be there, and it's the sun beaming down, you know?
No, it's good. That was good.
At least we're done with that shit. We got it, we did it, and we're done. So you used a setup type method for your poker as well. And it worked quite well. You were quite ingenious in figuring out ways to take money off of people that were less good than you, that had a lot of money and didn't mind losing it. So like,
yeah, I've always been kind of like a little bit of an out of the box thinker, right? So with poker and with a lot of these things, I try and figure out what I want, like what's my objective, and then I figure out like how to make that happen, right? So for poker, you know, some guys, you know, I mean, everybody wanted to make money, but some guys also wanted to be famous from it. You know, they wanted other people to think they were good. There was like all these things that went with it. They wanted to win bracelets. Right. For me, I just wanted the money. Yeah, that's it. Literally, I just wanted the money. I didn't give a fuck about the ego part of it with poker. You know, I let people shit on me. I, let them drag out the trust fund thing. I, embraced it. I leaned into it. and like obviously it's more prestigious to, make your own money and whatever and be self-made. But, if everybody want to think that I had a trust fund and that's where I got all my money, then, great, because that helped my poker and that made people want to play with me and that allowed me to get into those really good games. So, there's been a lot of times when I've, swallowed my pride, fucking took it on the chin with the ego and all that stuff because I wanted to fucking accomplish my objective. And with poker, I want to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time. And so, I mean, that was a very clear path. Like for me, it was just play against the worst players that had the most money, right? So, and
the more coke, the better. It seemed like players.
Well,
and the more distractions
with Sam, yeah. And so for me, it was just how do I get into these games, and so breaking into the the private circuit in Hollywood. I mean, I knew that was the answer, and so I got lucky with Nick Cassavetes's game. It was the first one I really played, and I'll never forget, man. I showed up there, and it was. It was a $10,000 minimum buy-in, and back then that was a lot for poker. Poker's kind of progressed, and it's not that people have necessarily really gotten that much richer. It's just the games just keep going up and up in stakes, and so back then that was a big game, and I made over six figures the first night I played it, and I just remember there was fucking Ferraris and Range Rovers, and everybody there was a big producer, they're an actor or something, and I was just I was the poorest guy in the room, and I kind of had to lean into the trust fund thing a little bit, and act a little bit crazier than I was actually playing. I mean, I was playing a lot of hands, but I wasn't doing that many really big bluffs. So I was kind of playing, I was one of the first guys to really play that loose aggressive style. And so what you do when you play loose aggressive is you'll open a lot of hands, you'll raise a lot pre-flop, small amounts, you'll be in a lot of hands, you'll narrow the fields because when you raise, less people are in there. So you're basically playing heads up or against two or three guys, and so you can get away with more bluffs. And because of all that, because you're playing more hands, because you're bluffing more often, the perception is that this is a fucking crazy guy and that he never has it and then he bluffs a lot. And so when you do get that big hand and that guy's got top pair, top kicker, he's just not going to lay it down. And so in the back of their mind, especially a super rich guy, if he thinks there's any chance that you could be bluffing, he's going to talk himself into calling because he wants to know. He doesn't want to fucking lose sleep that night because some fucking asshole flips over a bluff and embarrasses him in front of the table. If he loses some money, he doesn't give a fuck, right? $50,000 to him, $100,000 to somebody that's got hundreds of millions or billions of dollars isn't going to change their life. But getting embarrassed in front of that fucking table and having some kid flip over a bluff that'll fuck their ego up, right? So I was able to actually reduce my risk because, when I put big money in, a lot of times I had it and they'd be drawn dead. I'd have trips or something and this guy would have one pair and, and they would get their money in just so bad. And even when I was bluffing, a lot of times I'd have outs. So it was one of those things where, table image was important, and that was part of, kind of the setup is, by being perceived as a crazy player, then you can predict what other people are going to do, and and also obviously getting into games with terrible players was very beneficial as well.
It's smart, and I think a lot of poker players shit on you a little bit because I think they were jealous because they spent their career being pro, and then once you're pro, the guys you play don't want to play with those guys, right?
Well, see, a lot of those guys were in their minds, they're a better player than me.
But they are, a lot of them, right?
Well, technically, but part of poker is understanding. Well, it's the scoreboard is a bank account. I mean, how much money you've won tells me how much or how good you are at poker. Assuming we all start off with fucking a small amount of money, which we did. Then how much you've won should tell you how good you are because a lot of poker is getting into good games, getting into pots with bad players, getting them on tilt, getting them to play bad against you. A lot of times you'll make fundamental, game theory optimal mistakes, but it'll yield dividends in the long run because this guy pays you off every single fucking time you've got a big hand. Then when you made a mistake and you played loose or you made a bad call or whatever you did or made a bad bluff earlier, if that guy's playing perfect, then that's a terrible play. But if that causes him to call you every single time from that point on and play very bad against you and want to beat you in every fucking hand, then it was actually a good play. right? But they see the computer and they're playing online, and so a lot of their stuff is very robotic, and it's, you know, it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? How do I exploit this spot? And, you know, like, it's just all this math, which is great. Like, I respect it, you know? Like, if they're playing against computers or they're playing against a bunch of pros, like, they're going to do better than I will. But that wasn't my objective. My objective was to get bad players to play fucking worse for big money. And that's what I did.
It was awesome.
You know? And so yeah, and a lot of those guys never had access to these games, so they never saw that. And I wasn't running around trying to, like, you know, talk about my wins. But, I mean, I bought a fucking jet when I was 33, right? Like, so, I mean, trust fund didn't kick in until I was 35. I mean, like, so a lot of this stuff, like, you know, was perpetuated because I wanted this, you know, idiot image, and I would always talk about my losses, and I'd hype those up, and people would talk about this and talk about, you know, bad plays that I made, and, you know, there'd be times when I'd get a fucking cooler. I'd have kings, you know, and this guy would have aces, or, you know, we were playing super fucking loose to the point where you don't fold those pre-flop, or, you know, or maybe I'd have, you know, middle set and he'd have top set. And, you know, people would just think, oh, he was bluffing. But some of those spots I had fucking big hands, right? So, like, there's times when I'd muck my cards and people would be like, oh, he was fucking bluffing again. But really, I just got coolered. So, like I said, a lot of it's table image. A lot of it's understanding, you know, how other people perceive you. You know, there's different levels to it. There's like, okay, what does he think that I have? And then what does he think that I think that he has? And then what does he think that I think that he thinks that I – you know what I'm saying? Like, you can keep going, right? So – with a lot of it is, you know, what do I think his range is? What do I think he thinks that my range is? And how is he going to play against me based on that? And so there's a lot of, like, mental warfare. And then, you know, with a lot of these guys, I mean, they're not very good. So with them, it's binary. It's like, oh, he's either bluffing or he's got it, you know? And so for them, you know, they're just going to find out if you have it because they don't want to fucking lose sleep. So.
Yeah, and the way you set that up is good because you got people to want to play with you, unlike pros, and you use this facade of, like, I'm a trust fund kid and I have all this money, and you played it perfect, you know. And it's the same thing that kind of bit you in the end, where people talk shit about you, but it made you a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, the more they talk shit and the more they said I was bad, the more games I got into, right? I mean, that's how I got in with AG. You know, that's how I got in to play that Billionaires, because people were talking about how bad I played in Ibiza when I was playing a Geese game. And so I lost some money there, and, you know, I hyped it up and told everybody about how much money I lost there. And it was like, oh, this guy's fucking horrible. And that got back to Alec, and Alec was like, okay, time for me to take him off. You know, and so Alec and I battled, and I even lost money in a ring game against Alec. So, you know, he had seen me play, he had heard that I was bad, and then, you know, when we were playing for the big money, you know, I didn't play so bad. But I played aggressive, which you're supposed to do heads up. So he was playing against me like he had played against Andy Beal, the guy that he had beat for like maybe $700 million that year. And so that guy's, you know, I think he's worth like 13 or 17 billion. And so these two billionaires were battling, playing for crazy money. And so I guess, you know, like, Alec has won more money than any other poker player in the history, you know, but, you know, they were also, like, playing for crazy stakes. So it's a little different. But, I mean, I guess if you're just going by the scoreboard, you know, he's won the most money. But, you know, he's played against one guy. He's won all that money off of one guy. I made my money off a lot of different guys in a lot of different games. But he still made more money than me in poker. So if we're just going by the scoreboard, I'm number 2.
You know, I was with Full Tilt, and me and Bruce Buffer, actually. So I was with all those guys. I have 3 World Series cashes. So I got to see a lot of action firsthand with those guys. I've never seen the kind of gambling you did. And then you had the guys, you had actually poker pros come in on your book and give their take of your playing Mike Mattisau, whatever, and the swings and the stress of the swings from like hundreds of thousands to 10,000, and you're talking millions. How was the stress dealing with that? And was it Sam that you were playing for the Learjet versus the Bugatti?
No, that was Alec. That was Alec.
Okay. How is it to bet a Learjet and a Bugatti? And
it was weird. Like, it actually, like, that was like
crazy.
That was like one of the things that kind of like fucked with my head a little bit. Is when he started, you know, he like insisted on betting, and, you know, like a Mercedes was $100,000 and a Ferrari was $300,000.
But you start saying it fucks your head up, right?
It does, man. It's like a weird thing when you start, like, you know, and that's why they made casino chips. I mean, it's genius, right? These little pieces of fucking plastic, you know, you chuck a little piece of plastic in the center of the fucking, you know, table, and that's $100,000, right? Like, and I remember back in the day, we used to play with bricks of hundreds. Like, so you'd throw in $100,000, and it was fucking like a brick, like a big fucking brick of 100 grand, and people would see that and be like, fuck, their asshole would pucker up. And so it got to the point where, like, you know, you would see some of the guys, like, their bluff tendencies were actually higher when they threw in the money because the money was more intimidating. And so when they wanted to call, they would, you know, be more likely to throw in chips. So, you know, you had to, like, that was kind of like, okay, is this guy doing this because he doesn't want me to call, or is he doing this because he wants me to think that he does? You know, so there was a little bit of that. But yeah, like, you know, when you're playing with chips, it just, you know, kind of seems like Monopoly money.
Yeah.
But when you start talking like that, yeah, it's just
Jets,
like
Bugattis,
it registers.
Ferraris, that changes shit up a little bit. Tangible items.
It does, but you know, so for me, the stress was, you know, to get back to your question, the stress was more when it was for millions, but it was for a different reason. It was the reason why the stress was high for that is because when I was playing Alec, I was playing so big that I was actually playing big enough where, like, if I had enough losing sessions, I could have gone broke.
Yeah.
Like,
that's scary.
Yeah, it was weird because, like, I couldn't go lose $10-12 million to him and then go play back at the fucking kiddie game, you know? Like how long is it going to take me to fucking win that back playing, you know, against the, you know, rich Hollywood guys, like in the ring games? I mean, that would take you fucking, you know, whatever. Like, it could take a lifetime to win that, right? So, like, when you graduate to, like, playing super high stakes against a bad player and you start losing, like, in my mind, I knew, I was like, fuck, if I start losing to this, like, that's what was scary to me, is I was like, if I start losing against this guy, I'm going to come back. And if I lose again, I'm going to come back. And if I lose again, like, we could just fucking lose it all here, right? Because, and that was the thing. So that's what caused me the stress in the back of my mind, knowing that I was never going to quit this guy. And then also there was, like, a piece where, like, Rick Solomon had accused his dealer of cheating. Like, this guy would never fucking cheat. He's, like, super rich, like, honorable fucking stand-up guy, whatever. But, like, these dealers are getting tipped $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a night, like, in a night, for fucking chucking some carts. Yeah. Right? I tipped her $300,000 because I didn't want to get cheated. Right? So I'm like, okay, if I fucking tip as much as this fucking guy, like, at least there's not, like, the monetary incentive. You know? And so, and he actually, like did a lie detector test, and there was, like, this whole thing, like, and like,
you said he brought somebody, right? Like, some kind of guy to
I
help.
did.
Or you did.
So when I played,
to watch the dealer.
Yeah, I brought a casino pit boss.
Yeah.
So I had him fucking watching these dealers like a hawk. You know,
makes sense.
Yeah, it was like a very delicate thing. Like, I'm beating this guy, so, like, I could never, like, you know, even insinuate that there could be any of that going on, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and so, like, when they requested the hand shuffle and stuff, you just, like, you get a little nervous because, dude, like, one hand, like, there was a time I was sitting with $18 million in front of me, and he always had me covered. He'd buy in for, like, $50 million, whatever it was, right? So if he says all in,
you have a big call.
I got to make a decision for $18 million. Like, this guy also has that in his fucking toolbox where, like, he could just fucking chuck in $18 million on a fucking stone cold airball. Yeah. So, like, you know, that's another thing with poker, why I got paid off a lot of times, is because people knew that I was capable of sticking my whole stack in with nothing. And there's a lot of pros that will never fucking do that. Bankroll, well, not necessarily the whole bankroll, but, like, what they got on the table. You know, like, there's a lot of pros, especially when they're winning, that just are not going to fucking send it on a fucking stone airball. Like, they might do it with a flush draw, a straight draw, like with some, you know, kind of a draw where they're, like, semi-bluffing, but they're not just going to, like, ship the river with fucking nothing. I mean, like, some of these guys have it in them, but most guys don't. Alec had it in him, and I also did too, but to a lesser extent. And so, yeah, that was like, man, like, you know, No Limit, whatever you got on the table, it's fucking always in play. And so, yeah, that was a crazy time, man.
What was the I know you said that in the book, I think, but what was the most you ever won in one go? Like, one settings? I can't remember if the amount that I remember was a year.
Yeah, so
or if it was one setting.
I had a few big wins. I had it was like a 10.8 against Alec. That was in one night. Jeez. And then I got a text from Rick Solomon when he won $42 million against Andy Beal, and I had 25% of that. And I remember I was in a ski chalet in Montana with my girlfriend and Bobby Baldwin and his girlfriend, and we were watching a movie, and I got a text, we win $42 million. And so I was, you know, my piece was 10.5, and I was just like, That was probably one of the happiest moments of gambling for me because I didn't have to play. So I didn't have to. Usually, like when I would win, it would be after a fucking 16-hour grueling session, fucking hair falling out, stress to the goddamn max, right? Like, and so after that, you're like a zombie walking out. You're like, cool, I won 10 million, but it's not like, I had to smoke a joint in my house and just like sit on the beanbag and be like, okay, like I won 10 million, that's fucking cool. But like driving home, it's like you're kind of happy, but you're also just so fucking sapped. Like, and in poker, I talk about this in the book, like, you have to mute your emotions because when you're at the table, you can't be like internally celebrating every time you win a big pot. You can't be fucking, acting like your dog died when you fucking lose, and like sending yourself on this emotional roller coaster. So you're keeping yourself pretty flatlined, and so, when I got that text from Rick, I hadn't been playing. Like I was not in that mode.
Everybody.
Yeah, well, I was staking, a bunch of different people, and I was on vacation, and, like I knew I was going to get a text back. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't have the stresses of playing. I didn't have to, like, mute it. I could, like, celebrate, I was like, oh, fuck, like, that's a lot of money. Like, I'm stoked, and so that was my happiest win for sure. But then I was like 12.7 or 12.8 from Alec, but it was like a 2-part session. So like the first session I was up, I think like 8 or 9, and then I came back, and that's when I had the biggest hand I've ever had, which was the one where I had the nut flush against the second nut flush, which is just like a cooler of all coolers. It's not even a fucking skill. In fact, like skill considered, like I probably like had the worst possible outcome because like nobody's supposed to fold the second nut flush, and so like, but this guy's like trying to like wheel and
deal.
You did
something wrong, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
right?
I showed him the ace.
You showed him the ace,
but like this guy's like talking about taking his money out of the pot and like chopping it. Like nobody with the second nut flush ever does that.
You cost yourself
$2
$2 million,
like,
right?
Probably 10 million or something.
Just for showing that ace.
Well, fuck, like I wanted the guy to call. Like he's talking about chopping the pot. He's like fucking offering deals. Like nobody does that with a second nut flush. And so I was like, I don't know, man. And also it's a spot where like if you have the naked ace, you could definitely be, bluffing in that spot because that he doesn't have the nut flush. I mean, and heads up, people just don't fold like king high flushes. You're not supposed to. Like statistically, it's just a bad fold. But he was right, and I fucked up the biggest pot of my life, I just still won it, but I mean, that was definitely not like a pat myself on the back moment for sure. I mean, I was in the bathroom just like literally kicking myself because he took so fucking long on this hand that I had to go to the bathroom because I didn't want him to just like stare at me for the next hour. So I like literally went and hid in his fucking shitter while I was just like, let me know what you decide. Like I'm tired of answering your questions. I'm fucking out. And so I like sat in the bathroom and all I could think the whole time was like, you stupid motherfucker, you just cost yourself fucking $10 million.
But you still came out ahead.
I did.
And this is the crazy thing about poker because I was at the World Series and I cashed 10th. I bubbled the final table out of 2,500 people in one of the $1,500 no limits or 2,000 something like that. Yeah. And I walked away with almost $40,000 and I've never been so sick in my life. So you can actually win money in poker and still be sick, and that's not to your level, but as far as me, but that's what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, they kind of call it upstuck, where it's like, or if you were at a higher point, like let's say you were up like, 500 grand and then you lost. There's been times when I've like, whatever, let's just pick an arbitrary number, 500 grand, and then you lose back 300 grand and you win 200 grand, but you leave miserable. And then there's other times when you're like down $1 million and you come back and you fucking only lose 100,000 or 200 and you're like stoked, right? So it's like you step back and you're like, look at this and you're like, okay, the outcome of this is I'm leaving the table with 200 grand. The outcome of this is I'm leaving the table minus 200 grand, but I'm happier here. It's like, but it's just kind of like, and that's part of like why you have to mute your emotions is because otherwise you will. Like, it's very rare to like leave the table your absolute high point. Yeah. So for you, it's like, when you're playing, you can't be celebrating. It's like Kenny Rogers said, you can't count your money, while you're sitting at the table, right? And there's a reason why he said that is because, if you're doing that, you're like, maybe you're afraid to bluff in this
Unless
spot.
you're leaving. Don't count that shit.
Yeah, but like even if you are leaving, it's like, poker's one long session. Like it never ends. Like when you're playing
tomorrow's the next day.
Yeah, like when you're playing for a living, it's like, look, if you're playing blackjack or you're playing recreationally, then yeah, like just lock up a win when you want. But like when you're playing for, and I talk about this in there, when you're playing for a living, it's like it never ends. So like you actually shouldn't leave when you're winning, because when you're winning, other people have to be losing. Right? And they're going to play worse when they're losing. You're going to play better when you're winning. So it's kind of like, one of those things where it's the opposite. It's not like the blackjack strategy. When you're winning, you should just kind of fucking extend the session until you feel like you're not playing optimal.
It's like trading. Like, because I'm more into crypto now, but it's the same thing like trading, right? Because if you close the trade too soon, the same thing, you leave money on the table, or you wait too long and you're down. It's kind of like the same thing as far as that goes, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's similar in the sense that like, you're just because you cash out today doesn't mean you might not lose tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, it's like it keeps going. So yeah, I mean, trading and gambling have similarities. I mean, because trading is gambling to a certain degree, right? So I mean, gambling. People look at gambling and it's like, oh, that's crazy. You're risking this. But it's like everybody's betting. Like if you own a house, you're fucking betting that your house is going to go up in value. Like if you pay off your mortgage, you're betting that, you're going to, that your house is going to appreciate and that you couldn't do something with that money that would yield you more than the 2% that you're going to pay the bank. I mean, if you keep all your money in U.S. dollars, you're betting in the U.S. dollar instead of having a basket of currency. Like there's all sorts of things. Like whatever you do, even if you think you're being conservative, you're still betting on something. You're betting that your bank isn't going to fail. You're betting that the U.S. dollar is going to do well, whatever. So like everybody's betting. Like life is all calculated risk.
And you were also in the infamous Molly's Game, which they made a movie about. That's super cool. What was that like? And then Player X. You didn't
Tobey Maguire.
Okay, you didn't mention that in the book though, did you?
Well, he was in a lotsuit with the Bradley Ruderman lawsuit, and I mentioned it briefly because I said that he played.
Is it official out or no? I mean, other than what you just said right now, is it been confirmed that it's Tobey Maguire or no?
I mean, I confirm it.
Well, I know you are now. I know it's rumors that he's the number one candidate.
No, that's who it is.
But I know from you now, it is Tobey Maguire. Okay, cool.
Yeah, she was cool about that. She didn't want to sell anybody out. I don't give a fuck because I didn't really like the guy that much, to be honest. But
okay, so it's official.
Yeah. So yeah, she was cool. I liked her, man. She was really sharp. Like she actually kicked me out of her game. I mean, not like in the middle of it, but like she stopped inviting me back because she realized I was, going to bankrupt those fucking guys. But it was interesting because I actually helped her write the first chapter of her book, and then later I found out about that whole mob thing where she got fucking robbed at gunpoint, and it was it was a crazy thing, man. But yeah, I was in the middle of all that stuff. I got sucked into the Bradley Ruderman lawsuit. I mean, I remember him coming to the table. It was just like, what the fuck is this guy? He doesn't even know what beats what. I mean, the movie was actually really, really well done because it was super accurate.
Yeah.
It was really fucking accurate. And the girl that they got to play her talked like her, acted like her. I mean, it was pretty impressive, man. It was one of the very few movies where I was like, wow, that was pretty close.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good movie, and it's good to hear the insight. But it was at a house or
no? So I went over there, and it was at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills, and went in, $6,000-7,000 a night suite, and it was hot chicks and cocktail dresses, every kind of alcohol you could ever want. Sushi, a full fucking buffet. I mean, it was done right. She ran a good game.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the night, you tipped her 3 to 5% if you wanted to get a seat back. The suckers didn't really have to, but they tipped probably more than anybody. A lot of the guys were trying to fuck her, and she was good at just kind of reading a room, flirting just enough, keeping people's attention. But she never really fucked any of the guys, but she made them kind of stay interested, and she had dirt on most of these motherfuckers, banging chicks while they had wives or whatever. Yeah. So if they didn't want to pay, she had that fucking ace in the hole. She was smart, man. She was smart, and she ran a good game. And yeah, I made a little bit of money in it, and then that was it. I remember I was renting a red Ferrari at the time, and I met her at Mr. Chow's, and I was like all proud pulling up in this fucking thing, you know. And she pulled up in her Bentley, and she kind of like gave me shit about it, like, oh, the red Ferrari, huh? And I was like, fuck, just really like, took the wind out of my sails. Yeah.
That's funny. And then going back to Toby, so one of Toby's friends, Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm going to segue in using that. You told a story about, I'm still chilled from the fucking jacuzzi.
I know, I've just finally warmed up. I've finally warmed up. I feel like I'm actually like speaking coherently now, and I'm not like slurring. But
anyway, you talked about a story with Leonardo DiCaprio and Justin Bieber, complete opposite stories. Yeah. The Justin Bieber story, does he know about that, or did you tell him you're going to write that in the book? Or and how do you think he's going to react when he sees that? Because he's a little different now than.
I don't know, man. I had to tell my story, you know. I thought it was funny, and like, you know, I wasn't like trying to be.
It's not that bad, but I mean, he's just a lot different now, you know. So.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I mean, and I wasn't trying to be name droppy. It's just like for me. You know, you have to understand, like, I was a normal guy, you know? Like, I wasn't a guy that, like, grew up fucking playing in a band expecting to be famous or any of this stuff. So, like, I never thought that I'd be rubbing shoulders with these fucking people. And so, you know, when I'm getting my dick sucked in my closet and I look over and this fucking A-list celebrity that I, like, grew up watching his fucking movies is, like, getting his dick sucked with his fucking sunglasses on, like, that's, like, a kind of a crazy moment, right? Yeah. Like, in your life. Because it's him. Like, if it was some fucking random guy, like, you know what I mean? It'd just be like, get this fucking guy out of my closet. But since it's like this big celebrity that, like, you watch all his movies, it's like a different thing. So you kind of have to mention those things because they're like milestones. I mean, it's just something that, you know, when you grow up watching a guy's movies, you don't expect to be getting your dick sucked next to him in your closet, right? Like, there's just things. And, like, you don't expect to, like, get Justin Bieber laid. You know, it's like there's just things that, like, you don't expect to happen. And so when those happen, you know, and you're writing your fucking autobiography, like, I think you have to probably mention that, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is, you mentioned closets a lot, but what people don't know that hasn't been to your house is you have huge closets. So it's like your closet is like a fucking master bedroom. So it's like, it's not like you're in this little tight closet next.
Well, that one wasn't as big. So that was when I was living on Blue Jay. And it was, you know, the only reason we ended up in the closet was because my room had basically like turned into the VIP room, and it was like so fucking crowded that if you wanted to bang or get your dick sucked and you didn't want like fucking 80 people like fucking watching you, it was like the closet was kind of the thing. And so, you know, as I took more GHB, I didn't give a fuck, and I was like banging on the bed, and there's the fucking, you know, a whole bunch of people around. But like in the beginning of the night, yeah, we used the closet. So.
And you passed out from GHB. That's kind of dangerous.
When? Which time?
I thought you said you passed out or you stumbled or you had to recover.
Last night or last night or
no, I mean in your book.
Yeah. Well, last night I was like trying to like, I hadn't done G in a long time. I was just like trying to get into like deep sleep.
I mean, like in your book, you said you passed out from it.
Oh no, I really blacked dangerous. Out. I blacked out. My head hit the fucking table. That was at my first party, man. So like I had just moved into the LA place. And I'd thrown this crazy party at Marshmallow DJ and all these fucking chicks. It was like 500 girls and less than 50 dudes. And it's like this fucking great party. And I was like stoked on it. And yeah, man, I just blacked out before even fucking midnight. Like, I don't even think I watched Marshmallow perform. I was like, head hit the table, security fucking dragging me down to my room. I like wake up. I think I'd like piss myself. Like I fucking threw up on the goddamn. It was just like fucking, I had a cut on my nose. I got a picture of it. But yeah, a big cut on my nose. I just felt like such a fucking idiot, man. And I had like all these text messages. And yeah, that was the first party I threw when I was in LA. I just like, missed the whole thing. I didn't fuck a single girl. It's like my only party.
Rough night for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you throw a party like that, you expect to at least get laid, right? But yeah.
And I'm going to get into the parties in a second, but you spent some time doing some Hollywood stuff. Everyone's dream is to be an actor and you know, be famous that way or whatever. What's your take on Hollywood? Because you had your run at that. You did Lone Survivor, amongst other things. Olympus Has Fallen or The White House, whatever.
Yeah, let's not overhype the acting career. I mean, I had some like little moments.
But I'm just saying, what was your overall take hanging out in that group and being on set? I take it wasn't your cup of tea. It wasn't your type of people.
No, I just wasn't good at it.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, like I really wasn't a good actor.
And you had to take direction again. And as we learned in Buds, you're not very good at that either.
Well, I actually
this is why I put myself up as my own boss as well. Like I don't like taking directions either.
I actually think I like took direction pretty decently in Buds, but I've never been a guy that wanted to like follow the rules.
I could tell.
I just. But that wasn't my issue with acting. My issue with acting was it was just very hard for me to just really like get into that character and be, super comfortable. I never really had big roles either. And I was doing so much at the time, man. I was like gambling. I wanted to fuck chicks. It was just like kind of like one of those things.
You didn't
like a
need
bucket
to do
list.
it.
No, and I looked at it like, man, like I'd have to really get good at this, and I had to star in a movie, and I have to do all this shit. Star. And then maybe I make like $15 million for 4 fucking months and all this shit, and then I have to wait a year for it to come out.
Right. And
I'm like, that's the top of the mountain, like so. Do I want to like spend all this time to like maybe make fucking $10 million?
Yeah.
Like, no, I could do that in fucking 2 weeks. Playing this guy, fucking coked out of his mind, or whatever, right? So I don't know. Like it just was one of those things where. I thought it was cool. I always wanted to do it. I did the movies more just to like, because I've always been a movie buff, and so I wanted to kind of like see that side of it. And it was cool. It was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. But yeah, I mean, I think probably the highlight of my acting career was when I did Equalizer, and I had that death scene with Denzel, and I think I did actually like a really good job. And he said, he's like, that was a fucking really good take, or that was a good death, or something.
Good person to say that.
Yeah, I was like, fuck.
He's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's like one of the best ever.
And his son's good too.
No, he's a fucking G. So I was like, damn, that felt good, and I never forgot that moment. I was like, wow, just like one little sentence from this guy, and it's like stuck with me. My whole life. And so that's kind of like one of the reasons why, like, and anytime anybody ever asks me for a picture or whatever, like, I always, like, take the time, every time. Dude, I've fucking said no to, like, handful of pictures my whole fucking life. I mean, I've taken probably a fucking million goddamn photos. But yeah, it's just like, man, it's just, whatever, 5 seconds of your time. And if it makes that person fucking stoked or whatever, then what the fuck? Like, you're kind of an asshole not to do it.
Not to get off subject, but speaking of that, this just came out in the news. But so Conor McGregor apparently went and asked MGK for a photo, and MGK said no and pushed Conor. But then it later came out that Conor was DMing his girl or something like that. So I don't know the full story, but they almost got in a fight. Yeah. And Conor's like trying to punch MGK.
I saw something
Did you see
about
that.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy,
he threw
right?
a drink at him or something.
Yeah, Conor's losing his fucking mind.
What
is your take on Conor? I mean, obviously he earned where he got. He changed the sport. He did a lot, but he's fallen off fast.
I've got mixed emotions on him, and I try not to ever like judge somebody that I haven't met, because I know there's like a whole online persona and there's who they are.
Until you walk in their shoes, right?
Exactly. So with respect to MGK, just like, well, I'll touch on that first and then I'll go to Conor. I mean, MGK has always been like a really nice guy to me. So
I met him at your party, actually.
He's always been like super
Halloween party.
Super nice dude. Like, I don't know. So it seems very out of character if there wasn't like some kind of underlying beef for him to say no to a photo.
Super chill, yeah.
Yeah, like super nice. Like I've never had any issue with him ever. He's been to all my parties, like always been fucking cool. So I would be very surprised if Conor just went up to him and said, "Hey, can I have a photo?" And he's like, "Fuck off." That doesn't seem like him, right? So, so I don't know. I don't know why Conor flipped out. I will say Conor's been amazing at being a hype man, and I've never seen like self-promotion on his level ever. Like he's talked the shit, he's backed it up, he's had some speeches at press conferences that I thought were fucking hilarious. Like there was this one where he's talking about like riding into a village on a horse or something, like and killing like their whole tribe. Like if this was back in the day, or I don't remember what exactly it was, but he was like said something like talking about how. If this was back in the day, like I would have come into your village and I would have killed you. It was just really funny. Anyway, so he's been a great hype man. He's backed this shit up. I think he's been pretty smart in business. Obviously, he's made a bunch of money on his alcohol. He made a ton of money on the fucking Floyd fight. You know, I respect his business accomplishments. His Instagram stuff seems a little strange to me. You know, like it's kind of like he and Floyd kind of like have some similarities there, where it's like these dudes are so fucking rich, and they're like posting like $1,000 tennis shoes. Like I don't get it, right? Like you know, so he seems like kind of like, you know, a little. Like they're just strange brags, right? Like the guy's got a lot of money. I know he does. It's like, why are we like flexing on fucking Louis Vuitton straws? Right? Yeah. But I don't know, man. I'm not gonna talk shit. I think, you know, I think overall, like I've been very impressed with the guy. I'm not one of those people that like he loses a fight and I like stop being a fan.
Right, of course.
You know, like you know, I'm not fucking short-sighted. I don't look at like the end of somebody's career and judge them by it. Look at the whole thing, and what he's done in the sport has been fucking amazing. He's probably been like one of the best fighters for the UFC ever. So you know, I don't know. That's my take on Conor. You know, I'm impressed with what he's done. He's made a fucking shitload of money. He's kind of a fucking blue-collar guy that's made fucking crazy bread. And, you know, and I think now he wants to kind of like be the Hollywood celebrity thing, you know.
So you can answer this unlike anyone else, but a lot of people, I don't think they understand like the Tyson, the Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd may have a ton of money, but it's always speculative that he's losing his money. And then Conor as well, if he doesn't fight, is going to be starting to go down. Yeah. These guys that are super rich, how hard is it to downgrade your lifestyle? Because people think if you're super rich, oh, he's fine. He can just, you know, whatever, and he'll be fine forever. But I'm thinking like if you're super rich and you're used to this lifestyle and you're fighting, you're making money, you have all this money coming in, any downgrade is embarrassing, right? Like it's almost detrimental more than someone who's poor and has to downgrade, you know?
100%. So let's talk about Floyd first. Floyd is a guy that, you know, he's not even in the same league as, I mean, the guy's made over $1 billion.
Yeah. Like without any sponsorship.
Fucking
pure
crazy.
From the sport. The only man ever, he's the only man to ever make $1 billion from sports.
Yeah, which is fucking super impressive, amazing. Hats off to the guy. You know, I think he's probably got a bad manager because when you make that much money, you should never be in financial trouble. Right. And look, I don't know his finances. I just was told that when he took the Conor fight that he was struggling or that he owed the IRS money. That could just be total bullshit. Yeah. So maybe it is. I don't know. I do know that he is a fucking super generous guy and he's got a shitload of people on his payroll. Like I think he had like 350 people that he was like paying full-time salaries, which will drain your fucking money very fast. And I don't know how much he looks over his contracts. I just don't know. I would say this. I would say he has made way too much fucking money to be like doing Fashion Nova ads. Or like, you know, it's just crazy. And I know he's made fucking crazy bread. Like I think on the Logan Paul fight, he made $120 million just on that alone, right? He made like $30 million just on a crypto thing that he put on his shorts. Yeah. I mean, so he's made fucking amazing money. I don't know. Some of the things that he does, I don't understand. But, you know, so I don't know. You know, I don't know how much money he has. I don't know like what the incentive would be to be doing like ads. If I was him, I'd be like, fuck all you guys. I know like one time he was doing a club appearance where he spent more money on the jet fuel in the hotel than the club.
They paid him.
And he doesn't drink. So maybe he did get a pussy. I don't know. I mean, look, he's a super nice dude. I love Floyd. I mean, every time I've met him, he's been fucking super cool to me. He's welcomed me into his gym. He's made fucking crazy money. So I don't know. Maybe he's got bad. If he has money problems, I don't think he does. But if he does, then it has to be bad management because he has not personally spent $1 billion, right? So like, granted, like taxes take some and managers get, but whatever. He hasn't spent $500 fucking million. Like he's not blown that money. So if there is if he has financial problems, it's his management. Right. It's not him. But if it is, and he has had, and because I don't know his finance, but if he has had financial problems multiple times, eventually it lands on him, right? Because like if you go, you know, like in the hole or you're, you know, close to not having big money, and you go back to having a bunch of money, and then you go back there, then that's on you. The first time, management, whatever, but I don't know. Like I said, you know, news is all bullshit. Yeah. You know, it's just clickbait, right? Like, what would get...
And he could be selling a fight, you know.
Yeah, like, which he does.
Looks like he's desperate, so maybe he's weak. He's getting his first loss or something.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't think he manages his social, so like maybe it's his bodyguards trying to make some money here. Who knows, man? I don't know. But he's made a crazy amount of money.
But have you seen people at that highest level have to downgrade their life and how hard that was? Because for I think poker players, fighters, actors, anyone in entertainment especially, when you stop getting that big chunk of money coming in, right, it's hard to live, especially when you're 30, 40 years old and you got 20, 30, 40 years to go.
Well, I think
cash flows in business is where you get your money from.
Yeah, I think a bigger part of it is like how much of your identity has been built on the money, right?
True.
Like Floyd Mayweather is a lot of his identity is tied to money. So for him, if he were to like down the road, not have as much money, I think that would bother him because of like, he's, I think, attached a lot of like his success and his persona to the money. And I know the money is very valuable to him because he talks about it a lot. So if he were to, have to downgrade or whatever, I think it would probably be much more difficult than, somebody else. But look, for anybody to downgrade is the hardest fucking thing. Like, you have a poor guy living like a poor guy, it's no big deal. Like, when I was poor in the military, I was probably happier than fucking being rich later, and it didn't matter. And, like, little things gave you significantly more pleasure than big things did in other situations, right? Like Outback Steakhouse when I was in the military. That's probably a bad example because Outback still kicks ass. But anyways, when I was in the military, that was like a fucking 10, you know? And, like, if I just, even going to the movies was like a plus, like fucking just little shit. Like, it didn't take a lot to give you, like, that, like, pulse of the pleasure, whereas later, I'd buy a Ferrari and it wouldn't even make me happy for a day, so I think it's just all where your baseline it gets set, and within like a 6 months max, like you get used to any situation. So if you're used to the best of the best, then it's like kind of hard to get like pleasure pulses, because like going from the best of the best, like where do you go, right? But like when you're at the bottom, like any little thing gives you that pleasure uptick. So for a poor guy, like he's really got nothing to lose. But for a rich guy that like now that's his baseline, if he goes below that, everything's going to make him miserable. Like driving a fucking Toyota Camry, if he was driving a Bentley, he's going to be like, what the fuck is this thing? Living in a big ass house and having every amenity. But the biggest thing is staff. Like if you were to lose staff, that would be a fucking, because like having the chefs and all this stuff, like that's the stuff that, is really much better than like the cars and all this stuff, is like having like really great meals, like not having to do shit, like having your assistant deal, with all the bullshit, having your own jet, like being able to do whatever the fuck you want, like the freedoms. That's the stuff that I think, it kind of hurts, going like if you had to fly commercial after you owned a jet, like fuck, man, that's kind of a kick in the nuts, I
don't know that. I wouldn't know, but.
Well, we're going to Maldives.
Yeah, I get to take your jet next, and then tomorrow, right? We're going to Maldives tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe push it a day. We'll see. I fucking love this place, man.
But unfortunately, I have to go back to commercial after I get off your jet because I don't have a jet, so.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
What was the big difference from you described it very well in your book, but the big difference of living your lifestyle and then starting Ignite and having to be on that schedule and now build a brand while trying to still do the same things, which kind of worked, right? Because you built the brand off of your life and doing those things. But how much of a transition was that for you to have that schedule and deal with so many new people and constantly be promoting something versus just living your life and having fun?
Yeah, I mean, it was the schedule was kind of, that wasn't a big deal. I kind of like structured my own thing, but it was like having that, need to one up yourself consistently, and then dealing with like because I wanted to keep going. Like when you're doing anything, like you look at a lot of these billionaires, like, why is this guy still working? It's because like climbing that ladder feels better than sitting at the top of the mountain. So you kind of want, like, whatever I'm doing, I want to like keep going, right? So like when I started the Ignite thing, I wanted to like, promote, like, and everybody liked the lifestyle. So it's like, okay, let's fucking take it up a notch. Let's take this up a notch. Let's, more girls, bigger house, bigger boat, like all this stuff. Let's just keep fucking going. And what I did is I just ended up in a spot where it was like I actually found like too much. I actually, like, okay, there was too many fucking girls. It's like, because, in the past, it's like, okay, you go on vacation with 3 chicks, you get to fuck 3 chicks. That's cool. Go on vacation with 5 chicks, you get to fuck, maybe 5 chicks, whatever. So it's like more is definitely better. Bigger boat, usually better. So it's like, and that's the same thing as like, in the military, like all these little things like pleasure spikes. So when I got to that level, then I didn't get those pleasure spikes, and I noticed that like when I had too many girls, it was not only was it not better, but it was actually worse. It was just like I was being pulled in more directions, so it was a negative. So I think that was the hard part, is like feeling like I had a lot of pressure to like perform. All these eyes were on me. Like before, I was just like I'd go on vacation because I wanted to go on vacation. Now it's like I kind of wanted to like promote the brand and showcase the lifestyle and do some fun shit and one up my last thing. And so like towards the end, I got to a spot where it was like I was almost doing this stuff like out of obligation instead of like doing it because I wanted to. And like when I was initially doing the Instagram stuff, it was like bucket list items, man. I was like, okay, like I want a Lambo. I want to buy a Lambo. Now I want to take that Lambo to the racetrack. I want to race it. Like, we bring all the friends out to the racetrack. We're going to all fucking race. Now I want to, go to this place.
With Sam especially.
Yeah, like he was fucking great.
I would love to sit next to Sam when he's racing.
Yeah, I mean, bro, that would have been very fucking dangerous. He was such a hand grenade, man.
Like, I got to get with him in a second and talk a little bit more, but real fast. So Ignite, how's Ignite doing? I know you're expanding now and trying to keep going global. Yeah. How's everything going past the book?
Really good. Like we just, today it's worth over $500 million. So it's been doing really fucking good. Nice. We've been, crushing it with vape sales. Each quarter that we put out just keeps beating the last quarter. So I can't say too much because it's a public company, but everything, that I can tell you is, public information. And so. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited, man. It was like, COVID hit us and really fucked up our supply chain. We a lot of stuff was stuck in China, and then we got like a ton of fucking bad press. It was just like all this shit.
How was it dealing with that? And following that, like for people that don't have the money you have and the mental fortitude that you have, what is your advice on dealing with negative criticism? Because everybody deals with it. You dealt with it a lot more, but it seems like you've conquered it. What is your advice on how to deal with that kind of shit?
Man, it's just so tough because like a lot of people, couldn't even imagine dealing with it on such a scale, right? So I think it's all relative and it just depends. I mean, if you're going to be in the public spotlight, you just have to understand that no matter what you do, it's going to come and block it out. That being said, like when it comes fucking, crazy, it's not as easy said than, or not as easy done as it is said, right? But I think it's one of those things where you just have to recognize, like, it's going to come with the territory, right? Like, if you're going to be a fighter, you're going to get punched, right? You're going to be a celebrity, you're going to have shit talk. Like, it's just one of those things where, careful what you wish for. Like, if you're going to be fucking promoting yourself on social media, if you're going to be out there, if you're going to be on a TV show, whatever, just, like, know that that's going to come. Yeah. And just, like, accept it up front because there's nothing you can do about it. And so, I would say, just don't get like fucking caught up in the comments. Don't be reading this stuff. I mean, I think somebody sent me something the other day that was pretty funny. It was like when the Quarter Pounder came out, this other burger company came out with the 1/3 pound and it was like cheaper, but it fucking failed because people didn't realize that 1/3 of a pound was bigger than a 1/4 pound. So it's like, this is why I don't argue with people on the internet. Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, the people talking shit, man, a lot of these motherfuckers, they can't even speak English. They're, like, out of their fucking mom's basement. They're a bunch of angry virgins, whatever. And so, yeah, you you know, you got to just ignore it. Honestly, it's the only way to do it. And it was just tough for me because I was like writing my book at the time. I wasn't, you know, like, it's easy when you're traveling and you're fucking chicks and you're doing all this stuff. It's like you don't even fucking pay attention. But like when you're locked in a house and you're editing your book and, you know, like you're not traveling and there's COVID and there's all this other shit going on, it's like that. I probably got hit like at the worst time, and I got hit with like such a fucking barrage too. And it was irritating because it was like hurting the stock, it was hurting the company, and so that's why it was like, you know, pissing me off. So we got rid of the LA house, and you know, we got a bunch of shit for that. And you know, everybody's like, "Oh, he's renting his house." It's like, dude, I've rented every house I've ever had in LA. Like, I never want to be a fucking California resident.
Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I
didn't even own a house.
Like since like 2011, I've rented like every fucking house I've ever had in LA. Like, I've never wanted to be a Cali resident, and so it's just funny.
Wait a minute, you don't want to pay 60% tax,
bro, or wear fucking triple masks and fucking, you know, it's crazy. But you know, it's one of those things where it was just funny because people are so short-sighted. Like, oh, Knight's funding his lifestyle. It's like, motherfucker, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I've been doing this like fucking for like 8 years before I started Ignite. Like, I got famous like long before this. Yeah. And it's just like, it's just funny, man. People are like, oh, Ignite's paying for everything. He's not really rich. It's like so weird. And it was like at a time when I had more money than I'd ever had before. So I
remember when that came out and people were like, oh, because it's public company, so your records are public. And someone's like, oh, Dan's going broke and Ignite's going broke. And I'm just thinking to myself, did you not know Dan before? Because, you know, he lived the same lifestyle without any Ignite and business or whatever you want to call it. He earned it. So it's like, if anything, he's downgraded, like to try to make this business, you know. Yeah,
it was very strange. It was like, it was really strange. All the like the press that came out, like, you know, he's fleeing the country. He's like going to be arrested. It's just like, it's so fucking strange. And this like, oh, he lost $50 million. It's like, motherfucker, Uber lost $5 billion in a quarter. Exactly, you know what I'm saying? Like literally in one quarter, they lost like $5 billion fucking dollars. You know what I mean? Like they haven't been profitable since day one. It's like when you start a company and you're building a brand, like usually you're spending more money than you're making, you know, and in the long run, you're going to fucking, you know, have a bunch of fucking sales and you're going to get the shelf space. But like establishing a brand, like I don't think people realize like what big brands spend on marketing. Right. It's like fucking crazy.
And they're in debt. There's a lot of profitable big brand companies that are still in debt. They have loans out, but they pay the note on the loans, and they're profitable. People don't get that, right?
I mean, if you look at like Tesla's fucking value, I mean, it's just like so many of these companies, you know, it's crazy. But I don't think people understand business. You know, they don't like understand how it works. Like, oh, he lost $50 million. He's in debt. He's going broke. It's like, what the fuck?
It's just clickbait headlines.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it gets clicks and it works. So I understand why they do it. It's just sad that like our media has like regressed to a point of like the only thing they're worried about is like, can we get people to click on this article? Not like, can we report a good story? Can we tell the news? It's like, no, can we get clicks? And, you know, it's like, you look at a lot of this press and it's almost all the stuff that they post is like, can we generate negative emotion? And not just with me, I'm just talking about like in general, like whether it's, you know, like criticizing whatever president we have or whatever it's just all negative, because that elicits the strongest response. And so many times I've seen a fucking news article and I've like gotten upset and I had to stop myself. It's like, wait, like, get the full fucking story, you know, and then we can be upset about it, you know, if it's the case. Like I remember there was one guy and a cop shot him in the back, and that was like the headline, like white cop shoots black guy, you know, whatever. And I watched the whole thing. Like initially I was like, you know, pissed off, like, oh, another this fucking shit, you know, what the fuck. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I watched the whole 50-minute thing. This guy's like in the fucking KFC or whatever drive-through, passed the fuck out, like in the like hammered. Cop pulls up, knocks on the window, like nicer than any cop's ever been to me in my fucking life, right? Cop's like, hey, can you pull over here? The guy like pulls over, hops the fucking curb, goes into the grass, jams it in reverse, goes back over the curb, like, you know, it's just hammered, right? Cop goes over, like super nice, like asks him all these questions, like how many drinks have you had? He's like, oh, only one drink. I had a margarita. Then like 2 minutes later, it was a fucking daiquiri. And, you know, like couldn't remember where he was, didn't know what city he's in. Like his story was that his girl came in another car, put him in that car, but he hadn't even been driving the car, but that it was just nonsense, right? So this cop is like the most patient cop I've ever seen. And then finally, like, after he fails the fucking thing and he's going to arrest him, the guy, like, attacks him, grabs his taser, shoots him with his fucking taser.
Oh, shit.
And it's like, to me, man, like, this cop is not signing up for the fucking UFC. Like, yeah, granted, like, you're going to have to get into some altercations, but, like, they get paid $60,000 a year. Like, part of their job is not to, like, get fucking tased, get attacked, whatever. Like, granted, it's going to happen, but, like, when you attack a cop, you have to expect a negative outcome. Like, if I punch a cop or grab for his gun or his taser and shoot him with his fucking taser and I get shot, I'm not going to be whining about it. I don't expect anybody to be fucking crying for me. Like, if I flee the fucking scene and I'm, like, ditching the cops, like, okay, like, big balls, like, respect. But if something happens to you, like, don't be whining about it.
You made that
like,
decision.
Yeah, like, if you fucking flee the police and you get away, like, okay, man, like, you put your nuts on the table and you got away with it. But if you don't, you get shot, like, okay, like, you fucking deserved it, man. Like, you fucking, you know, you're fleeing the police, you're attacking a cop, whatever. Like, there's consequences. And so, yeah, man, I don't know. It's, but like I said, you know, it's like the news is about triggering people.
Yeah. And going back to the Ignite thing, the thing that pissed me off the most about when that bad press came out was you didn't have to do that, right? So you actually wanted to create a company which actually serviced people and gave people a product and did something for people.
Yeah.
And then they criticize that. It's like, this man didn't have to do this. This man could have just...
Let's talk about the headlines, too. Like, the Ignite's
you actually created something for people, and then they bash you for it.
Well, you know, or the headline, like, you know, Ignite's paying Dan Bilzerian's credit card. You know, he's a renter. He's broke. That's like, I put $30 million into Ignite. You know what I mean? Like, after, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's just, it's a crazy thing. But like I said, man, you know, it's the news today. You know, but, you know, that was, like, I think one of the most positive things that Trump did was he really, like, shined a spotlight on the fact that, you know, so much of this stuff is bullshit. It's propaganda. It's whatever, you know, so.
Yeah, and then your parties. I want to just talk about that really fast. Was that your idea, the Ignite parties? Because to me, that was the greatest parties ever. The Halloween party I went to was insane. I mean, Puff Daddy was there, MGK. I was you go in your door to the left, the bathroom there. I was standing in the bathroom line, and Ludacris was, like, behind me. And I'm like, what the fuck? And the funniest part was watching A-list celebrities walk around your house in awe. Like what the fuck, you know? And these are, like, A-list celebrities looking at your house.
No, it was crazy, man. It was like, you know, everything had a purpose, you know? Like, I went out to LA and I was like, you know what? We're going to fucking make some noise. Like, I knew what the Playboy Mansion did for, you know, Playboy, and I was like, okay, we're going to replicate this. We're going to do it on a bigger level. I actually looked into buying Playboy. But they wanted too much for the brand and whatever. So, you know, I was like, I'm just going to do this better. And, you know, part of this is going to be throwing the parties, having the crazy ratio. Like, I always had my parties, and this is back since, like, 2012, where, like, if you went to my party and you were a guy and you wanted to get laid, you were going to fucking get laid. And you were going to get, like, aggressively laid. It wasn't like you were just going to, like, wander in there and maybe get your dick sucked in the bathroom. Like, you were going to be fucking at least one or two, like, because it was like 300 girls and 30 guys, right? So, like, girls get horny just like guys do, you know? And so, like, when they have to compete for a guy's attention, it's a different deal. You know, like, when they go to a bar and, like, a bunch of guys hit on them, like, they can go to bed feeling good. But, like, if nobody pays them attention, like, they got to, like, find a guy to, like, feel okay about themselves. And so, like, and the guys that were at these parties were legit guys. I mean, they're, you know, producers, they're, you know, actors, whatever, you know, just buddies of mine, successful guys. They weren't, you know, just fucking random dudes. So they knew that if these guys were at the party, that, you know, they were, you know, at least somewhat fucking cool. So, yeah, it was crazy, man. You could get wheeled in on a goddamn wheelchair and get laid at these things. And that was the goal, was to just create an environment where, like, you know, and that's how I envisioned the Playboy Mansion when I was a kid. It's like, if I could get in there, like, I could get laid, you know? And so, like, I wanted that fantasy to be a reality for, you know, people, and that's what I did.
Well, you've been to a lot of parties, and I'm sure you've been to some huge ones with billionaires and everything else. Did you put on the best parties? I mean, I haven't been to any better than those. So was that the best parties you've been to as well that you put on?
Like, unequivocally so. You know, and I've been
even to the guards with machine guns and shit all around. That was fucking crazy.
To me, it was always about the girls. You know, people talk about going to the club to, like, dance, or, like, I went to the club to get laid. Right. That's the only reason. Just like if I went to a casino, I was going to a casino to gamble. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had a reason. Like, if I was going to a party, I was going there to get laid. And so, you know, for me, like, I've been to some parties that had, you know, probably as many A-list celebrities. You know, it just depends on how you judge a party. Like, some people just want to, like, schmooze, or they want to be around important people or whatever. And I think from that standpoint, it was as good as any I've been to. But like to me, the real judge of a party is the hot girls, you know. And so I think that I know I've never even heard of a party that had. I mean, maybe Playboy back in the day, but like modern day, nobody threw a better party than that because like getting that many hot girls in that sort of an event was tough, you know. Like I had fucking top fucking DJs. You know, I had big celebrities. You know, I brought in the things that the girls would want at a party because you can't just throw a bunch of fucking girls in with no guys and expect them to stay there all night. So we had entertainment, just like at, you know, my initial pool parties. We had masseuses, mani-pedis, you know, champagne. It was like, you know, all the stuff that they would want. And then for these parties, I mean, I had Cirque du Soleil performers. I had, you know, like I said, top DJs, you know, celebrities, you know, athletes, whatever, like the things that, you know, girls are going to want. And it was exclusive. It was hard to get in. And then the venue, you know, I got the best house in LA for throwing parties.
Yeah, and that Halloween party, Alessio was the DJ. And you had a Cirque du Soleil performance that I missed. Yeah. Like, how do you have a Cirque du Soleil performance in your house, and I actually missed it, and I was in your house? That's how big your fucking house was.
I think I missed it too, man.
Because they were getting ready in the kitchen kind of area, and you told me, and I missed the whole fucking show. Yeah. I asked you later, and you're like, oh, it already happened. I'm like, how did I miss a Cirque du Soleil show?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was one of those things where you had to have like 3,000 people just to make the house feel like it wasn't empty, you know? And so we had multiple levels, and
I felt like it was a Great Gatsby. Like you were like the Hollywood Great Gatsby.
I feel like that in the sense that I was like barely there at my parties. You know, like I didn't even see, like I wasn't there for Cardi B's performance. You know, I was like
that too.
Yeah, I was like, it was too crowded. It's like, fuck this. I went in my room and there's, you know, a bunch of chicks there, and so I was like hung out and ended up having a fucking orgy and didn't even come out. Like I didn't like exit my room for the rest of the party. And then there was the first party that I blacked out like a loser. But like most of my parties, like there was a lot of people that would come to my parties and be like, is he a real person? Like, where's Dan? Like, you know, it's like kind of like a Where's Waldo thing. Like, can they find me? And I was usually like tucked off, or it'd be, you know, like banging chicks or whatever. But I was like, I wasn't really like out and about too much because, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm not like a super social guy. Like a lot of people think that I'm like this fucking super like gregarious, outgoing guy. And I'm just like, I don't really fucking like being around shitloads of people and crowds and all this stuff. And it actually kind of got exacerbated more with the fame stuff. And especially when you're throwing a party because, you know, now you're like the center. So like when I walk through a party, it's like all the fucking eyes are on me. People are filming, you know, girls ask for pictures and shit like that, which is cool. When you're getting laid, there's no better setup. There's no better situation than walking through and being the center of attention. It's just like, you know, that's the best thing you could imagine. So for getting laid and, you know, and I would be, you know, fucked up. And so I'd having a good time. It was fun. But I just, you know, I don't know. I was just not really out and about too much.
And that's something people don't know about you is you are kind of a low-key guy. And like we've been having so much fun, just a couple of us going on a boat and diving all day. And the whole time I'm thinking like, fuck, how is he having so much fun with all this life that he has, you know, and all these things that he does? But you're having the time of your life. I mean, it's just like four of us out there diving.
That's the fun shit, man. Like doing like active, you know, stuff in the fucking sun and cool spots, like surfing, free diving, like, you know, snowboarding, whatever. Like that sort of stuff to me. Because I've, you know, fuck the chicks. I've done the stuff. I've had the fast, like all that stuff, fucking whatever to me. Like, but, you know, freediving, you can stay down for longer. You can see new shit, you know, like with snowboarding, you're fucking ripping down the mountain. You're with your friends, surfing. It's like every wave is different. You never know how the swell is going to be. Like, whatever. It's, I don't know. And I like to be active and, you know, I'm a, you know, physical person. And so that stuff makes me happier, you know. It makes me a lot happier than doing, like, the pleasure seeking. Don't get me wrong. Like, I had a ton of fun fucking hot girls and racing cars and doing all that shit, too. I've just done it like a lot, you know? And so now, like, you know, I go in phases, you know? I'm like, right now, I'm like an active fucking having fun, you know?
And you're such a kind of low-key guy. I was so surprised you wrote a book because I'm like, he's going to have to talk a lot in the book. He's going to have to tell everything. And you did it. Like, the insight you give and the raw and gritty, honest take on everything is just, I recommend this book to everyone. I want to say a big part of your book was about your buddy Sam, rest in peace. Crazy dude. Give me one story that's going to get people to want to read more about Sam, because he's all throughout this book and every single fucking story is crazy. But give a little story just in case they're on the edge about reading the book, and which I don't think they are, but talk a little bit about this guy Sam, because man, he's a character.
It's, you know, it's hard to describe him. Like I did like a little cartoon, and I think you get a little bit of a feel there, but you'd almost have to see this guy.
he was just like such a anomaly. You know, he's like a racist black guy against other black guys, which is just like, wait, what? Like, it was just crazy, man. Like, there's so many very eccentric things about him, and how much fucking money he would blow, and it just nothing really made sense. Nobody can understand him. And then, you know, and then in the end, you know, you find out why. It's like, you know, this guy had this like rare autoimmune disease or whatever, and he basically made like $700 million going long gold, did all this fucking stock shit or whatever, crazy leverage. It worked out, made a ton of money, found out that he had this, you know, disease, moved to LA, and, you know, with basically a death sentence of 2 to 8 years, and lived like a guy that, you know, there was fucking no tomorrow, man. And it was just like, you know, who the fuck puts tiger sharks in their pool? Like,
I was gonna say he at least outlived the tiger sharks that he put in his pool. That was for you. Who does that?
I mean, there's just so many things, man. Like, so many fucking things with him. It's just
That's a great story, guys.
You would go to his house, and it was just every time it was an adventure. You know, there'd be naked girls running around. He'd be fucking like shooting them with fucking baby oil, running around fucking shirtless. You know, while we're playing poker for hundreds of thousands of dollars, like. You know, there's a mound of cocaine on his side. I mean, just craziness, you know, just every time, you know, it was just something nuts. And that's what I told people. I was like, listen, like, I'm not really that crazy of a guy. I'm just surrounded by fucking crazy people, and nobody had ever believed me. And then they come into these situations, and they'd be like, fuck, I see what you're talking about, you know. Yeah. This guy's got a fucking potato gun shooting a glass dildo through his fucking plate glass window at like 3 a.m, like sending golf balls into fucking his neighbor's house, like drives one right through fucking
with his
Cher's
face
house.
on it.
Yeah, puts his face on a golf ball, then sends him into his fucking neighbor's house at like 2 a.m. I mean, just, man, craziness, crazy.
Yeah. Well, the book is insane. It's a must read. I have no doubt it's going to go to the New York Times #1 best-selling list. But I got to ask you, I got to end the podcast about fighting at least. So I got you 2 questions. First of all, who are some of the fighters you've looked up to over the years? And then I'll just leave it with that first. Since I can't talk.
Tyson was a good one. I mean, man, I grew up watching him. His fights were just so entertaining. I mean, he was, you know, he's a guy that's 5'9", 5'10", and he's just fucking up the biggest dudes in the most gnarly way. And you know, there's not really any heavyweights, or there hasn't been any heavyweights like that for a while. You know, and so. Growing up, that was super fucking, you know, entertaining to watch his fights, and he was definitely one of the guys that I was always like, you know, stoked about. And then like a lot of the original UFC guys, man, like, you know, I watched it back when it was like, you know, fucking the karate guy versus sumo guy. You know, like I watched like the UFC 1, like back when like Shamrock had like Lion's Den, and they were actually like beating Jim. I was doing jiu-jitsu like 22 years ago when I was like 18. It was actually like mostly judo, but like our school fought Lion's Den, and so it was like, you know, I was kind of like in it in the beginning, so watching it progress has been cool. But there's been so many greats, man, like GSP, Anderson Silva. I mean, you know, Vanderlei was always fucking fun to watch. Like, you know, Vanderlei actually had a gym right next door. So, yeah, I mean, just there was so many, man. And I feel like there was a lot more back then. And it seemed like there was more personality back then. Now it's like the sport has progressed so much that everybody's so fucking good that it's hard to really stay on top for too long. Yeah. Because there's so much competition. Like, you know, every day there's a new guy that's been training since he was fucking 4 years old, right? Like scientifically and like training the best way possible. Like back in the beginning it was like, okay, this guy is a fucking, you know, jits guy. This guy is a fucking Muay Thai guy that also wrestled, right? Like it was like, now it's like, I don't even know if they announce that anymore. It's like everybody's just like super well-rounded, and they've got like preferences. But there's like, back then it was like there was guys that only did judo. Remember, like people would have like a specific thing, and so Dana's done a great job, with the sport and everything. But like I said, you know, it's just tough because now everybody's so fucking good. It's hard to like have those guys that stay on top. Like Silva did, or like GSP did, or, you know, like, you know.
Especially as they get older.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
But you're continuing to train, and I built this gym to train everyone, not just fighters. And you come multiple times a year to come train, and you do it out of love. Like, you come in to train, and oftentimes you don't take photos, don't do videos, and you do good. How is it to train and fighting for you? Since you don't have to, it's just passion and love.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is like, your gym is honestly one of the reasons I like fucking Thailand. I mean, I talk about like, some other islands that I go to and shit, and it's cool, but like, you can't find good fucking gyms there. And I'm not just MMA, but like, you've got the full, like, fucking, if you want to work out and hit the iron, you've got the real iron, and like, traveling through Europe, it's very hard to get that, and I'm always kind of been a fucking, meathead. I've always been into working out. I've been doing...
You do work out hard.
Yeah, I've been doing all that shit. It's just like a part of me. I've never taken more than like 4 days off in like the last 20 fucking whatever years. Like, I love it. So for me, a part of like traveling, it's very hard for me when I travel to have like a similar lifestyle to what I live at home. Mm-hmm. And Thailand is one of the few places, like with Siripanwa, I mean, Juan has got the fucking greatest resort, and he's, always been the best fucking host.
Absolutely.
So with that resort, with the amazing diving, with this fucking world-class gym, I mean, it's just got everything that, I mean, dude, I stay here for a fucking month, man. I don't even know. Like,
know. People ask me, like, dude, what do you do to keep them there for a month? I'm like, he loves it here.
Dude, I get tired of yachts fucking quicker than the, and I'm not talking about like fucking legit, like crazy, badass, best of service. And it's like, I don't live as good on those spending $1 million a week as I do here in Thailand. Right. It's like, man, and the cool thing about this place is like anybody can afford it. Like, it's not expensive. Your dollar goes as
free diving is hardly anything. You could kayak.
Dude, the thing that I like the most in my life, like doing fucking mushrooms on a beach, free diving, fucking surfing, whatever. Like, all this stuff doesn't cost shit.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I talk about in the book. Is
I like the ending, how you kind of round everything up. And kind of give your take on how you built your life and what it overall means, and like the value of what you achieved compared to the simplicity of other things.
Well, I think like I'm in a unique position to tell people that.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
My dad made a lot of money, and like he told me like money, doesn't bring you happiness. I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, because you don't spend it. Like, you don't have a fucking Lamborghini. You're not fucking a bunch of hot chicks. You're not doing this cool shit.
Yeah.
So what the fuck do you know about money? You may have a lot, but you don't spend a lot, right? Like, so like I spent a lot. Like, I did a lot of shit. Like, I've done everything that I wanted to do. And like, yeah, that stuff is fun. I'm not going to say to people that it's not. But like I said, the things that I enjoy the most that I do now don't really cost shit. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand, because it's something that like I spent almost my whole life chasing is money, thinking that was kind of the answer. And it has been like cool. I mean, it's given me freedom. It's given me the ability to do a lot of shit. But you do not need money to be happy. And also, like, the more money you have, I actually would argue the harder it is to be happy, because like we talked about before, you're setting that baseline here. So like, getting those little pleasure spikes, going to the fucking movies, fucking buying something cool, getting a good outfit, getting a pair of shoes, like all that stuff that made you happy when you didn't have money, now is like, whatever. So
we're a good example of that, because like I set my life up similar in a way where I didn't have a boss. I have a good life. I live on an island. I have everything going for me, and then you show up, and then I'm like, fuck, I want what he has. So you're that guy that's kind of making me want to level up now. So
I hear you, but dude, we're living the same life right now. The last month we've been doing exactly the same fucking shit.
It's been amazing, yeah.
Yeah, like all the stuff we've been doing like doesn't cost a lot of money, and I've been having fucking a ton of fun, you know? So
that's why I'm here. That's why I chose this place.
Dude, you picked a great spot, man. I fucking love Thailand, and like you've really carved out like a really cool spot here, and it's nice because I feel like, I've got like a second home here, with
Always.
like Siripanwa and the fucking gym, and like it's just, you can eat, you can shower here, you can do all the fucking shit that you need, and fucking boom, it's nice, man.
And lastly, since this is kind of a new thing that's starting to happen, this transition from MMA being the biggest sport to now this boxing kind of mixture of MMA fighters versus boxing, and Jake Paul being kind of the center of it. What's your take on that with his fights and this transition, and Vitor Belfort jumping in and Anderson Silva jumping in and all this kind of stuff? What's your take on this whole thing?
It's interesting because I talked to Jake about this like I don't know, man, maybe like 2 years ago. When he first called out Conor, I hit him up and I was like, man, because I knew what he was doing. I saw what he was doing. I'm like, okay, like you're making yourself the bad guy. You're getting everybody to hate you. You know, he took a big gamble, dude. Like a lot of people, they like see it on the outside. They don't see all the fucking angles. Like he, you know, like, yeah, he's done some dumb shit, whatever. He's a fucking kid, dude. Like I can't count the number of dumb shit that I did. Like I can't even imagine have the spotlight on me that he has when I was that age.
Yeah.
Like I would look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Right? But like, and yeah, he's done some shit that's made him look like a fucking idiot, but he's young, dude. But like, he put his balls in the line. And, you know, I'm not like some fucking huge Jake Paul fan or anything, but like, dude, he went all in. Like, he put his balls on the line because if he had lost those fights, and granted, like, some of those fights were fucking tee-up fights, but like, those are real guys.
The Tyron fight, I was really surprised that he took that fight.
You know, but even
that was a big risk.
Yeah, like the basketball player, whatever. That's kind of a fucking joke. But, you know, Ben Askren, people talk shit, whatever, but he's still a fucking tough motherfucker. Mm-hmm. You know, like, yeah, he's not
an Olympian.
He's not a predominantly striker, but this guy's been fighting for a living his whole life. That's what he does. Like, he's an Olympian. He's fucking, you know, like, yeah, he didn't show up in great shape, but like, this is a fucking legit athlete, you know, and this is a guy that's been hit by the fucking hardest fucking punching guys. Like, he's, you know, he's got his stripes, dude. And so, you know, yeah, it was, you know, it wasn't like a super tough, but he's also a fucking YouTuber, dude. Like, he's not a guy that like grew up getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, man. I see what he's doing. He's fucking making money, you know, like he's given a lot of these fighters their biggest paydays. So you know, yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's impressive. I think what he's done, I mean, we'll see where he goes with it, but I mean, look what his brother did. I mean, his brother made a fucking crazy amount of money. Yeah. You know, like, I think those fights to a lot of people are more interesting than like the best guy this week in fucking, you know, boxing or MMA or whatever, because unless it's like somebody that's been, you know, at the top for a long time. Like when Anderson Silva fights a guy that could beat Anderson Silva, that's like, okay, I'm going to tune in for that motherfucker, right? But I'm also going to tune in when fucking Conor fights Floyd.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like those things.
It's entertaining for sure.
It's fucking entertaining.
It's entertaining for sure.
What Conor should have done is he should have come in at like fucking 190 and fought Floyd.
Yeah.
That's what he should have done. You know what I mean? Like that should have been the second fight that they did. Because you got to give people like, oh, but he's bigger, but this, but that. You know, let people fucking talk about it and generate interest and hype. And it's like, those fights are interesting, you know, because you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, Logan Paul was like fucking, what, 6'3", fucking 200
Big
pounds,
guy.
you know? So, like,
Big guy.
Everybody thought Floyd was going to win, but, like, he's also, like, knockout weight, you know? Like, I think if he was as good a boxer as Jake, you know, fucking who knows? Like, I think Jake versus Floyd, I think Floyd would still fucking win. Like, I think it'd win pretty fucking easy, but, you know, it's still, I think it'd be an interesting fight. Like, I'd watch it. Let's put it that way. And so, like, that's really what they've figured out is, like, what are people going to watch? I mean, look at the WWE. I mean, it's like the fucking biggest joke ever, right? Like, it's all, like, choreographed nonsense. But people watch it, and they make a lot of fucking money. Yeah. All those guys make more money than the MMA fighters. And the MMA fighters could fucking walk out with brain damage, could fucking either snapping their fucking legs in half. Like, they're fighting for real, dude. And they're fighting in a cage, and it's, you know, and they got all the fucking eyes on them. And they're taking big risks, and they're not really walking away with a lot of fucking money. And then you got, you know, guys at the fucking WWE. Granted, that sport's not, you know, it's like kind of a joke. I mean, it's all choreographed, but they can still fucking get hurt. And they're doing some shit that definitely does hurt. But it's choreographed. Like, it's not real fighting. So, you know, and they're making way more money. So it's like, this is kind of like a hybrid of that to me. And I think it's smart. I think, like, people want to see celebrities fight. Like, I would have watched fucking 50 Cent and Floyd get in the ring. Like, you know, 50 Cent's gonna get fucked up, but I'd watch it. Like, I don't care. Like, it'd be interesting, you know. And it just like it'd be interesting if fucking MGK and MMM decided to fucking throw gloves on and get in there, you know. Like,
I think Justin Bieber called out Tom Cruise. That'd be an interesting one too.
I would watch it. I would watch all of them.
I'd love to watch.
You know what I'm
that,
saying? Like, because you don't know what's going to happen. You never know. And a lot of those fights, like you've watched the smoker fights, like with amateurs. Those are fucking a lot of times way more fucking interesting. Because
usually the first that connects goes down.
Yeah, guys will show up in there and either fucking massively overperform or massively underperform. But it's like, it's always entertaining.
Yeah. And
I think that at the end of the day is what it's all about, right? Is entertainment.
Yep, absolutely. And yep, I know you want to work out, and I appreciate your time. I don't want to keep dragging you on here. We're gonna hit the gym after this, but this book is absolutely amazing, and it ships this week, correct?
Yeah, I think next week.
Next week. Okay, so it ships next week. And how can people get it?
It's sold on Ignite.co.
Okay, Ignite.co, and we'll put all the information in the description below. Dan, you were my dream guest to have on just because I started this podcast to interview interesting people, and there's no one more interesting than you. We became friends over time, and so it made for a better podcast. So I'm glad you turned me down for 4 years and made me work for this.
I think it's
because we have a much better, podcast this time.
Yeah, now that you have the whole story, I think, the conversation's always going to be more interesting. Back in the day, it was same questions. Oh, I heard you threw a chick off the roof. It's like same 3 questions. So
sure. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right, brother.
Thank you.
Anytime.